It's the fourth quarter. Here we are. Let's get into it. Ryan, I know you guys got some history, so why don't you give the proper introduction to this Duke legend?
I don't know. It's almost impossible to give a proper introduction. I'm going to do my best, though, because this guy's got a lot going on. So welcome, Reggie. This is Reggie Love. You guys met him in the last segment, but now we're actually going to get to know him a little bit. So Reggie and I went to school together. We were the same year. We came in at 2000, right? Did you come early, Reg?
Premature, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't do that, but I just remember showing up on campus and someone pointed him out to me and goes, "That guy, 3-star." I went, "Damn, 3-star." Maybe it was 4. I don't know, but I had never heard of a star, so I was like, "Oh, damn, that's impressive." Anyway, physical specimen, but that's not even close to what's impressive about him. So let's see. And correct me if I'm wrong, Reg. You graduated with 2 degrees, or you almost had 2?
Public policy and political science. Yeah,
and political science, right? Okay. So he's I think we talked a minute ago about duality, right? So this is the king of duality. All right. We have 2 majors. We have 2 high-level sports. He played basketball and football at Duke. Probably could have ran track, I'm guessing, maybe archery. All right. He won an NCAA championship in 2001. That was our freshman year. That was exciting as hell. Burned lots of benches. He then went on and did some really boring stuff afterwards, like played in the NFL a little bit, had tried his hand there, and then he kind of met this guy Barack and became friendly with him, and then eventually worked in the White House as the presidential aide for 6-7 years, and then things really got boring because then he left and went to Wharton, UPenn, right? One of the maybe the best business school in the world, besides Duke, besides Fuqua.
Of course,
that's where I went. Yeah. So again, the Obama administration, then he goes on and gets more education, and you just heard him talk about lifetime learning. That's absolutely Reggie Love. So Reggie has also got another interesting duality, which is that he's one of the smartest guys I know, and definitely the hardest partier I've ever met, which is a dichotomy that I can really appreciate because I couldn't do both. I had to choose one or the other. So I flip-flop back and forth, but anyway. So that's Reggie Love. Mike, what do you think about that profile?
That is fucking
it's
impressive.
a sad thing because let me tell you, I have 4 beers now, and I'm like,
well, there's a new dichotomy, right? The early years and the later years.
The same. First of all, that's very, very impressive. And particularly on the duality of being able to party hard and study and do well, in class. That was something that I prided myself on. And then I started hearing stories about Reggie Love when I was on campus. I'm like, damn, that I gotta step my game up. But very, very impressive, man. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you in person or even prior to this conversation. So it's an honor because I heard a lot. I went to school with Demetrius and Phil, some of those guys you may have heard. Yeah, Coogee, Big Coogee. They pledged me, so I'm an Omega, and just hearing the legendary stories, I can't lie, not all positive, if you will. I heard something about UNC, but I'll maybe we'll get to that.
I don't even know what you could be talking about.
But I'd love to kind of start from the beginning, man. This such an amazing story, right? And for guests that we have on the show, we might focus on a particular part of their life, but when your life, as far as I could tell, has been big D energy across the board, I'd love to just kind of maybe jump from the beginning or start personal. What do you think, Ryan? How do you want to start?
I think the first thing we need to do is we need to get Reggie's father's name.
Richard.
Interesting. Does anybody call him something else short, like Ricky?
I mean, look, the running joke is that everyone called my dad Big Dick Love.
Yeah, Big Dick Love.
Big Dick Love. Wow.
Now to the duality. So when I grew up, I used to drive 50 minutes across town to get to school. You had to leave by 6 o'clock. And, there were a couple nights where I was in high school and I would stay up until, 1, 2 in the morning. I'd wake up and I'd be like, "Dad, I'm sick. I can't go to school today." And he's like, "Look, man, you want to party hard? You want to stay up till 2? That's great. You can do it. But you get the fuck up and go to school in the morning. I don't care how sick you are, how tired you are."
And that must have carried through because I tell you what, he would show up every camp practice, right? Not having slept the night before, and then outperform everybody physically on the field.
Damn.
every time. And it used to drive me crazy. What?
No, I mean,
I went to
look,
bed at
man,
8:30.
and I never out bench pressed you. You know, that's the one
The
thing.
fact that you even have that conversation with a linebacker who has records you know what I mean? Like, look, Mike,
No, man.
Reggie Love at 6'4",
Man, I was like,
225.
but you were 29 times?
What?
29 times?
35.
35. Yeah, not even close. Come on.
But you did bench press 400 pounds.
True. 4 or
as
5.
a receiver.
4 or 5.
Yeah, 405, and squatted over 500 and had a 40-inch vertical and ran a 4.4 or something like crazy.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Hey, and the craziest thing was he could run for days. It was, yeah.
Oh man.
Anyway, let's get into this personal stuff.
That's insane.
Well,
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys having me on. And look, I appreciate the friendship. I appreciate, the love for Duke football. And I hope that we can bring on some viewers here and have a good conversation. And hopefully I'll be able to show this to my daughter.
Well, Reg, you're going to have to probably edit it to show it to your daughter.
Speaking of daughters, so you got kids, it sounds like? Married?
Got one. Yeah.
Okay.
Tell us about your family.
Kat Conlon is the best partner anyone could ever have. She played ball at Trinity. Basketball. And the Navy is 16 months.
Wow.
Navy Elise Love, middle name after my grandmother. My grandmother was the first African-American woman to work for Social Security in the state of South Carolina. Post Jim Crow. She used to ride a segregated bus every day from Mount Pleasant to downtown Charleston. Single mom of 3 kids. And most importantly, my parents still together, Richard and Lynette. It's like my dad worked at this job for 47 years. He's been with my mom for 52.
That's big.
And I'm like, wow, that's real work.
Amen.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm curious, just real quick, in that time, right? So you were born and then you went to Duke. We know those 2 things for sure. Kind of in between, if you could tell us maybe, some of those defining moments. I know you mentioned the story with your dad and get up and go do what you got to do regardless of how you're feeling and partying. Just that kind of childhood, that upbringing, right? Because again, we kind of charted out all the accolades, and I'm always curious about the origin story. Like, how does the villain or the hero become who they are?
And I loved basketball growing up. One of my best friends, Andrew Moore, when we were 9 years old, we started playing together. When I was in 7th grade, everyone's trying out for their middle school team. I got cut from my JV middle school team, and I thought I was pretty good. I was playing on this travel team. The coach must be stupid. I'm at home, I'm crying. My dad comes in and he was like, what you crying for? And I was like, oh, they cut me. I can't believe they cut me. And he was like, yeah, you're not that good. He was like, like most parents will they come and
that sounds like my dad.
They're like, it was like, yeah, you're not that good. So you should go work on your game. I'll get you in this other league. And so I went and I played rec league my 7th grade year. And I still laugh about it because he laughs at me. He was like, remember when you were terrible and you were crying? You were in the bathroom on the floor, oh.
I think I've seen that before, but the 20-year-old version. What'd you learn from that?
For me, the thing that I always tell everyone I talk to young people, I'm like, look, you're going to get a couple shots. Everyone's not going to get the same amount of shots. Life isn't fair. And the only thing you can do is be prepared. Be prepared for your opportunity and know that you may only get 1, you may only get 2.
That's a good point. What do they say? You never have to get ready if you stay ready.
Right.
I'm curious, Reggie, real quick, I didn't even realize this, but you went and played for the NFL or had a try. Tell us about that, right? Because, I would have assumed maybe NBA was a thing.
Oh, man.
Duke basketball.
Let me tell you how uneducated I was about the game of football.
Okay.
Man, for all these years, I was running around, catching passes, playing 80 snaps, outside of the 7. I was like, this game is great. It's this game is amazing. Man, I played my first preseason game. I played 24 snaps against the Arizona Cardinals. The next day I could not walk. I was like, oh shit, people do this for a whole season?
Dude.
It's wild.
Yeah. And so you actually played as a receiver and had some time as outside backer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Never heard that happen before. I mean, I
Never.
could think of like Metcalf maybe, who could probably do something like that today, but he doesn't do it, is the point. You actually did it. What was that whole situation, or what was the? I mean, even the decision to try to go for the NFL. I guess you just saw that as maybe a better opportunity.
No, man. Bill Parcells called me, man. Bill Parcells called me. So I got released from the Packers. The day I got released from the Packers, Johnny Dawkins, who was the associate head coach, called me. He said, "Look, I just saw you got released. Why don't you come back and play another year of basketball?" In my mind, I was like, "Oh, well, shit, football is over for me. This is it. I'm going to go play hoops, and I'm going to go get a job." The day after we lost to Michigan State, Bill Parcells called my cell phone. No clue how he gets my phone number. I think it's a joke. I think it's D. Scott calling me. And I'm like, come on, man. And look, the tuna calls you and says you think you'll be a good outside linebacker. How do you say no? I mean, it's like, you're like,
You don't. You show up and you get your teeth knocked in by tight ends. Fighting with tackles and tight ends at the line of scrimmage is a whole other game. I can't even imagine how you started to take that on. How did that go for you? I wasn't, so if anybody doesn't know, I was playing for the Cowboys when Bill
you
called
remember
Reggie.
I got stitches. I got stitches from Jason Witten in preseason.
Oh, I don't remember. I mean, like, think about that. He's never had to like wrestle with the big, strong dude, and all of a sudden he's in the NFL and he's going against NFL tight ends and tackles. Like, I mean, they rolled me up.
Yeah.
I don't know how you felt.
I'd say the tight ends weren't as bad. It was the Tony blocks, man. The Tony blocks, man. You can't. And who knew those guys could build up that much speed and that much space?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that was one of my first rude awakenings in the league, was going up against that O-line and realizing that, oh shit, like I can't, my game in college was just lose my leverage, hit them in the chin, they fall down, I keep moving. I hit them in the chin in the league. I mean, I wasn't going anywhere. That's when I really started to have to work my hand movements and get off blocks. But it was like, oh, this is different.
And were you going against Flozell?
Yeah, Flozell.
Oh,
yeah.
So it was Larry and Flozell on the same side, right? And Flozell, we called him Flozilla. He's 6'8", 360 pounds. Larry Allen's strongest man that's ever played. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the other thing, right, and that I personally can appreciate is that journey beyond sports, right? Because even for myself, right, having kind of gone, like I call tackling the tech, teaching myself how to code, starting a company, I'd love, like, and I heard your story. Obviously, I was at Duke when that historic day happened when Obama became president. I just remember these stories about, Reggie Love and, being on Air Force One and like not knowing you, but just knowing that you were a Duke legend at that point, and now the legend went up, having been with the president. I'm so curious, and I've been waiting for this to ask, like, if you could tell us about that, and really if you could just give me Obama's number, but we'll get to that later. Tell us about that experience, just how it all came together.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though, because a lot of people assume that like, oh, you must be from Chicago, your parents must be fundraisers. I moved to, after I left Dallas, they wanted me actually to go to NFL Europe. I was like, cannot do it, can't do it. And I was gonna go work at a bank, and I'd gotten a call from Pete Rouse, who was the chief of staff for Barack Obama in the Senate at the time. So he's the 99th ranked senator. I visit DC. I have a couple interviews, Pete Rouse, Robert Gibbs, Chris Liu, and then on the next day I meet Barack Obama, and he says to me, Pete says, "Do you want this job?" I was like, "What's the job?" He's like, "Staff assistant." I was like, "Well, how much is it?" And he was like, $26,000. And I was like, "Signing bonus?" He was like, "No." "Moving bonus?" He was like, "No." 5-year contract? He was like, "No." Come and go.
Damn.
And so I kind of, for me personally, what I had realized was that I got a great education and I got a great preparatory college education from Providence Day. And, my parents couldn't really afford to send me there, but, I was tall and I ran fast, so they figured it out. Mm-hmm. And my whole thing was that, everyone should have access to college prep education. Whether or not they want to go to college, it's up to them. but the barrier shouldn't be, you got to be 6'4" and running 4.40, right? And so what I recognized when I went to visit in DC is that, you know, if you have, Barack Obama was the only black senator at the time, 100 senators representing all of the United States. At that point in time, population of the country was 18% African American. And the thing that I sort of said is that you can't truly have representative government if you don't have people who are from all parts and all walks of life helping to like make policy, helping to solve challenges, helping to figure out how to make the world more equitable. And so because I didn't have student loans, thank God, Duke football, I had made a little bit of money playing football and I could afford to make $26,000. I felt like that was my opportunity to get back. And so on that journey, you know, I started working in the mailroom. And so I helped them digitize the mail process, the first U.S. Senate office to have a digital mail process. So we could answer and respond to mail 5 times faster than what we had done historically. And then when Barack Obama decided to run for president, Pete Rouse, who had hired me, everyone kind of knew what they wanted to do, right? Like, it was weird for me because in sports, I always knew like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go here. I'm going to be here. And when Barack Obama decided to run for president, you know, everyone was like, I want to be speechwriter. I want to be Iowa State director. I want to be the political director. I want to go work in finance. And, you know, I'd never worked on a presidential campaign. And I said to Pete, Pete, you tell me what you think I'll be good at. If I'm good enough, keep me. And if I'm not good, don't fire me. Just move me to another position. And he said, why don't you go on the road and take care of stuff? You know, and look, and at that point in time, no one really thought that Barack Obama was going to be president of the United States. This is, you know, January of 2007, I'm sorry, you know, and when it comes down to it, like, I think campaigning with Barack Obama had more similarities to Duke football than anything I probably have ever had, was because when you're campaigning, unlike a game, there's no outcome. There's no, you won, you lost. You're just there. And you don't get true measurements. You get polls, right? They'll tell you what the polls say. Barack Obama worked every day. He worked every day, irrespective of what the poll number said, irrespective of the outcomes. He just showed up and he was like, I'm going to take my message to every part of Iowa, every part of New Hampshire, every part of Nevada, every person who can contribute economically to this race. Which for me, I thought was amazing, but more importantly, because he thought it was an opportunity for him to do something that was bigger than himself, that he could make a play that was a team play that ultimately could change the course of the country.
I got to ask you a quick question, right? Like you said, nobody or most people didn't expect, you know, Barack to become the president early on in that campaigning trail, right? I'm curious for you, kind of being on that journey with him. At what point, if it wasn't necessarily in the beginning, did you like really kind of look and say like, oh shit, like this could actually be happening? Was there a moment?
We were in Indianola in Iowa. It's right outside of Des Moines. They have this thing called Harkin Steak Fry every year. And before the Harkin Steak Fry, and Obama came to speak to people before he went in, he came to speak to volunteers. And in that rally, in that volunteer area outside of the steak fry, there were more people at this little volunteer rally get together than there were at the entire event. In Indianola, there are 2,500 people. They're all lighter than all of us. And I was like, they're here to see a guy named Barack Hussein Obama. I was like, this is real.
Yeah, wow. By the way, both that and how you compared the campaign trail to Duke football was really insightful for me. I didn't really think about it that way, but that was really interesting.
Well said.
So can you, I know we're short on time here and you got to go, but can you take us through like a typical day? And then can you also like indulge us some and just tell us something crazy, like maybe something that most people never get access to, maybe never hear stories about, like, I don't know, like being on Air Force One with slides on after you just visited Vatican City, right? Like something like that.
I mean, So typical day, I mean, obviously during the campaign, days are harder because you got less resources and you're trying to squeeze as much out as you can. So you're up at the gym at 6 for an hour every day. He's eating breakfast at 7:15, first event at 8. And basically did that every day until 10 o'clock at night. Unless you had to fly to your last destination, like maybe you did a rally at 8:39, it finished at 10. You got to fly west to get to Cali or get to another place. So maybe you get in at midnight or something. But there was nothing better than if you got to actually stay in the same hotel 2 nights in a row. 2 nights in a row in the same hotel was like bliss.
Damn.
And then, in the White House, I mean, there's so many resources, right? Like, you got Air Force One, you got Marine One. They're never delays, right? Like you're delaying everyone else, and the infrastructure is like it's a whole nother thing. I got a chance. I went to 70 countries with President Obama as president.
That's dope. Damn.
The thing that always struck me was that I think we've done a great job of making democracy accessible and making people feel like they're a part of it. And I do think that it's a big reminder that, our democracy doesn't work if we don't participate in it, right? And I think oftentimes we get frustrated, oh, it's so divisive, it's so hard, or why are the gas taxes so high, or we don't have early child care in every state, whatever it may be. I just remind you that even when these things are tough, we've got to spend more time working on them because that's how this process works, and other places can't do it.
Yeah. Now
what you said is important too. It's a process, right? Like, I mean, it's the democratic process, and I think that's important because answers and outcomes don't happen; they are worked towards, right? They are built to, and there's really no end to any of it. So,
right, we're just getting a little better every day, man. We got to get a little better every day.
And while I love that and it's super deep, I just gotta say, is there validity to this Air Force One slides reference that Ryan made? I mean, that would be gangster as hell.
I did wear flip-flops one day on Air Force One and got yelled at.
Oh, is that against the Air Force One rules? No slides?
No one's ever tried to wear, no one thinks to wear flip-flops or slides on Air Force One. They probably button everything up, But didn't Obama say to you, Reggie, I think you're the first person that's ever worn sandals on Air Force One?
Yeah, he did say that.
That's dope. That's dope, man. I appreciate you appeasing us on that. And I know I got to shout it out. If I'm not mistaken, you actually wrote a book.
Great book.
Where I think you go into, certain, details, right? So I certainly don't want to spoil it for our audience.
Yeah.
You sharing it. So I appreciate you. But if you want to talk about that a little bit.
I wrote a book,
Power Forward,
15 Power Forward, My Presidential Education. Really it's about the journey, what I learned. I think I had a lot of great people who were always patient and kind with me to give me their knowledge, right? And I just always, I think oftentimes as a young man, we're always taught next play. Yeah. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to take the time to reflect on what I had learned and how those things that I had learned had impacted me on the journey. So that, when other people, when they're thinking about what they want to do, or if they want to come work in politics, or they're thinking about their transition, that they may be able to take a pause and a breath and to say, okay, let me think about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and where I want to be and how do I see myself getting there.
I tell you, I listened to it on audio and I thought it was excellent. Really, really, really good. And did you narrate it?
I read it. Yeah, I read it.
Oh, that's dope. That's dope. I ever said if I was going to do that, I would love to narrate it because I think that's
3 days. 3 days of reading, man.
Well, let me ask you something real quick before we let you go. I know we spent a bit of time on kind of your journey, but we didn't really touch on kind of everything beyond that, right? And I'm curious if you want to share a little bit about what you're doing now, what you're passionate about. I would love to share with our audience kind of what you spend your time doing today outside of being probably a great husband and father.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I think the jury's out on all of those issues, so
I tried.
continue to
So
work.
proving guilty.
Obviously, if you can't tell, I'm passionate about, and I spend a lot of time on trying to make sure that we get good leadership into the political process. Spent a lot of time in this last cycle, and education still. I'm a board member of National Summer Learning Association, which they're really trying to squeeze down the access gap, right? And so, if other people are doing educational stimulation in the summertime and you're not, then in theory you're falling behind, and that's like a resource game. Everyone can't afford to send their kid to math camp or reading camp and yada yada yada. So trying to make sure that all communities, especially in underprivileged communities, that those kids have those resources so that they can compete academically throughout the year. And then I'm a senior advisor at Apollo Global Management. They're an asset management firm based in New York. A couple Duke people who are there. Board member Jim Zelter, you guys might know him. He's co-president. Jim Vanek, also, who's an MD, who's also Duke alum.
Nice.
We're the largest non-bank lender in the U.S. I work on our global policy team, so I spend a bunch of time trying to educate policymakers on the importance of private capital in the public sector.
Man,
Beautiful.
bro, this was
you know that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been an honor. And this was so good. We actually ran right past our 2-minute drill, which is, with rapid fire, questions at you. But, I guess when you're winning, like you do, Reggie, you don't need a 2-minute drill.
Just take a knee. We're just going to take a knee.
Exactly. We're going to take a knee.
Clock run out.
How about this instead? Why don't you leave us with a final thought, all right? And maybe to our audience of Duke alumni, students, and really fans across the globe, if you could just leave us with a final thought with all that wisdom and insight and experience from you, we'd love that.
I quote Coach K on this point, but I know that you guys learned this as Duke football players, which is that every play matters, no matter how small it is. When you were playing assignment football, when you were trying to execute a play, you gotta play the play. And sometimes we feel like it's too daunting, or we can't impact it, or what I do doesn't matter. But what we do matters, man. And I think we have to always take that into consideration, even if it's like a small thing. Those little things matter. And if we all decide that we want to do something that matters, we can move a country, a community, a team forward in a way that's super powerful.
Good. Hey, Mike, I got to say that reminded me of the thing you always say, right? How you do, what was it?
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Right. How you do.
I love that.
Smart Duke guys both think alike. How about that?
Yeah. Nah, man. Well, listen, folks, I think that's enough Big D energy for one day. Reggie, we really appreciate you joining us. We look forward to having, you and the rest of our audience along for this journey. On behalf of myself and Ryan and our entire Big D Energy team, we will see everybody next time. And it wouldn't be a proper show if we didn't holler these 4 words.
Go to hell, Carolina.
There you go.